Good morning, restaurant owners, and welcome back to our weekly financial training for restaurant operators. My name is Tim Cernett, and I am the founder of Financial Optics, where we help independent restaurant owners accelerate prosperity by providing financial clarity, actionable financial insight, and strategic foresight. This weekly training is designed to help you use your accounting systems to make better financial decisions and thus become better operators. Last week, we covered the 7 most common financial system breakdowns in independently owned restaurants. Now, if you missed that one, go back and catch it. It's very important training in this series. The last breakdown on that list, and in many ways the one that ties everything together, was having no operating plan, no financial roadmap. And today, we're going to fix that with today's presentation. Let me go to the slide deck, share my screen, hand over to the slide deck, put it in presentation mode, and let's get started. Now, here's something I know is true for restaurant operators. They rely on gut instinct. Most of us as business operators rely on our gut instinct and past experience to make your financial decisions. They work incredibly hard. You know your restaurant inside and out, but you don't have a written, detailed financial plan that tells you where you're headed and whether you're on course. And here's the truth of the matter. The most successful restaurant concepts do have a financial operating plan. They generate monthly reports that tell them exactly where they stand against their plan, their forecast, and they measure against that forecast. I'm sorry, I didn't have that on the next slide yet there. But if you're not planning for those numbers intentionally, you're hoping they land in the right place. And we all know hope is not a strategy, but an operating plan actually is a strategy. An operating plan, and some people might call it a budget, I think that greatly undersells it. It's your restaurant's financial GPS. It tells you whether you're going, where you're going, and whether you're on course to get there. Without the financial plan, you're driving without a destination. You might end up somewhere good, but you wouldn't know it, and you certainly couldn't repeat it. So today I'm going to walk you through how to build a 12-month operating plan for your restaurant step by step. We'll cover how to define what success looks like for your specific operation, how to build a plan from your actual historical data, and how to handle overhead and fixed versus variable cost, and most importantly, how to use the plan monthly as a living management tool. I'll even show you what a sample plan looks like so you can see the structure. This isn't theory. This is the number one tool you have for taking financial control of your restaurant. So how do you define success for you? Before you build a single number in your plan, you need to answer the question that most restaurant owners never sit down and deliberately answer. What does success look like for my restaurant in a year, in 3 years, and in 10 years? We're focused today on the next 12 months, but you need to have a vision that takes you beyond next month, beyond next quarter, beyond this year, and where are you headed in the long run? And I don't mean just make more money. I mean specifically, what outcomes are you building toward? More cash in the bank, higher profit margins, which puts more cash in the bank, reduced personal stress, the ability to invest in your team, your space, and your equipment, building a business that can actually run without you in it every day. That takes time, but if you don't have a plan to get there, you never will. Your definition of success should be as unique as your restaurant concept. A fine dining establishment in a downtown market has a completely different financial picture than a casual neighborhood spot doing family dinners. Both can be wildly successful, but success looks different for each one of them, and their operating plan should reflect that. So once you know what success means to you, you tailor the plan to the realities of your specific operation, your concept and price point, your location and customer demographics, who your customers are and what they're willing to spend, and probably most importantly, your core values, your customer experience standards, how you invest in your team, whether your sources are local. Those aren't just philosophical, they have financial implications and they belong in your plan. And your capacity and operating hours, these set the ceiling for your revenue potential. Without a personalized operating plan built around your definition of success, you're simply guessing at what changes will drive the improvement and why those changes matter to your specific operation. The operating plan makes the abstract concrete, and it turns I want to make more money into I need to improve my food costs by 1.5 points and hold labor at 34% to hit my target net profit of 8%. That's much more defined than I want to make more money. And there has to be a plan to achieve that. That's 8% for this year. But what's your plan so we can improve to 12% next year? All right. Building the plan. How do we go about this? Every operating plan starts with what actually happened to get you where you are today, your last 12 months of performance. Then project the next 12 months with intentional improvements built in. Start with revenue and then plan out your prime cost based on history. Now we build and the process follows a logical sequence. Look backwards to understand your reality, the past 12 months, then look forward to plan your future. Always start with revenue and then work your way down through prime costs, through food, beer, liquor, wine costs, front of house, back of house, and then you work your way down to your operating overhead. So you pull the last 12 months of actual performance and break revenue out by category. Food sales, beer, liquor, wine, non-alcoholic bev, and other retail products if you actually carry them in your restaurant. If your chart of accounts isn't set up correctly, and that was the number one breakdown from last week's, not having a chart of accounts set up for your restaurant in the restaurant business, you should be able to pull that information directly from your point of sale system if your financial statements aren't set up to track that correctly. But that's the first breakdown, and that's one of the things that you want to correct. And that's one of the trainings we go over here in this 12-week series. So what's growing on your food, beer, wine, liquor? What's flat? What's declining? And do you understand why? Are there seasonal patterns, menu changes you made, pricing adjustments, local market shifts? That all matters on how you build your 12-month plan. Remember, it's a 12-month, month over month. You're looking at every month. So looking back to the prior year has influence on how you build out your plan over the next 12 months. So you need to read that story from last year before you can write the next chapter. Okay. Projecting the next 12 months of revenue. Now you look forward, set the specific revenue goals by category, not hope, not wishful thinking, goals based on what you know about your market, what happened last year, your capacity, and the specific actions that you plan to take to improve revenue. And based on your analysis in the prior step, build out your revenue goals by month. Remember, this is a 12-month, month over month operating plan with monthly detail. How do you grow your revenue intentionally? Maybe it's pricing adjustments based on contribution margins, special events and promotions, targeted advertising. Each revenue goal should have a plan behind it, and you can see that and build that growth out over months, month over month, not just a number on a spreadsheet. Be realistic. If your restaurant has been averaging 160 a month in revenue, and you project out 200,000 without a clear strategy for how you're going to get there, that's not a plan, that's a wish. The best operating plans are grounded in reality and stretch built into the plan so that you're stretching your business, stretching your team to fulfill certain goals. All right. Once you've projected out your revenue, now you want to build and plan for your prime costs, food and labor. product and labor, more specifically. These are your two biggest controllable expenses. Combined, they should account for about 60-65% of your revenue. That's the benchmark. If your prime cost is above 65%, profitability is going to be a struggle regardless of how busy you are. On the food cost side, what's realistic? What are the improvements you can make to bring down that food cost? Let's say it's running at 34%, and you believe you can get it to 30% through better inventory management, tighter waste tracking, maybe some menu engineering. Build that improvement into the plan, but build it realistically over months, not overnight. So how soon can you improve from 34 to 33%, then to 32%, and so on until you've hit that target of 30% food cost? On the labor side, based on everything we covered in weeks 4 and 5, where are the realistic efficiencies? What's your target labor percentage for back house and front house separately? Remember from the data we covered, profitable full service operators are running around 30 to 34%, depending on the concept, the restaurant concept. If you're at 37%, what specific actions will bring you closer to 34% in the next few months? And then plan those actions to get closer to 30% over time. Build those targets in. This is where the operating plan starts to become powerful because you're not just tracking what happened, you're planning what you want to implement, what you want to happen, and building the specific operational actions to get there. It's your operating plan that connects your financial targets to the operational tools that we've been covering in this series. Okay. So you've projected out your revenue and you've projected out your prime cost. And you've projected out improvements in each of those areas month over month. Now you need to account for your overhead, everything else it takes to run your restaurant. And the key here is understanding which costs are fixed that you really can't do a whole lot about and which are variable that you can actually influence. So fixed costs are predictable. They're mostly non-negotiable. Things like rent or mortgage payments, insurance premiums, internet and technology services, equipment leases that have been set a couple years ago that last 5 years, contracted services, maybe the alarm, pest control, so forth. They are relatively predictable. They don't fluctuate much with your sales volume, and you know what they are. So you plan them out month by month. There aren't a lot of surprises here unless a lease is coming up for renewal or insurance is being repriced. How can you plan for that change in the next 12 months? So look at those terms on all those fixed agreements. When do they change, and how can you influence them in your favor? More importantly, there's variable costs. They move with your volume. So if you're seasonal or you're projecting out improvements in your sales volume, you've got to adjust these variable costs so they're in line with the sales volume. For instance, credit card processing fees, cleaning and kitchen supplies, linens and tableware, utilities, especially water and electricity. They all fluctuate depending on your sales volume and your traffic volume. Marketing and promotions, those you're kind of planning out. They don't necessarily fluctuate with volume, but you might have certain marketing initiatives that are going to cost money to implement. When are you going to implement them over the next 12 months? And then there's repairs and maintenance. That's pretty hard to predict, but you can kind of look at history. You can kind of look at when you have quarterly maintenance done on maybe some of your equipment and budget those in the appropriate months. All right. The controlled distinction is that the overhead isn't controllable, but it really is. Identify what you can actively control versus what you can only monitor. And these we've all covered in the in weeks 2, 3, and 4, and 5 here. Your prime costs are the most controllable and have the biggest impact on the profits and cash flow. But your overhead expenses, they focus on your energy. Focus your energy and attention only on those controllable factors for maximum impact. You can't change your rent mid-lease, but you can negotiate your credit card processing rates if you're at a high rate. You can't control the weather, but you can manage your utility consumption. So figure out what you can control and focus your effort there. But your priorities should be improving prime costs and getting those percentages in line with where they should be. All right. I'm going to skip this slide because this sample operating plan is not very good on this slide. And I'm going to bring over an Excel schedule. This is a sample of what we do. Let me hide this column so you're not focused there quite yet. This is how we approach it with our clients. First of all, you can see from the operating budget, this is you're starting with the prior year. These are annual totals. And you can see on the financials, because the chart of accounts is set up, remember that's the number one breakdown. You don't have your chart of accounts and your financial reporting set up for a restaurant. We're tracking individually food, wine, liquor, beer, bottle versus draft, if that's important in your business, and non-alcoholic beverage. We're tracking the cost. What are your food costs compared to food sales? And that's the percentage right there. What are your wine costs compared to wine sales? So you can see we're breaking down prime costs. We're comparing that to the relative revenue line item. We've set up tracking for back of house and front of house revenue. And we're even breaking that down by position so we can build a plan when we're actually figuring out our labor forecasts that uh, adjust according to positions that we might be changing and gives us that focus directly on our P&L and our budget. And then down below are your operating expenses. And this is one category that we also try and break out. It's called direct operating expenses. And those are the things that are the most controllable inside your restaurant beyond prime costs. So glassware, smallware, linens, things like that. Then we have the rent in here, and then we have just a line item here to make this example simple. All other G&A operating expenses. In that would be marketing, and that's one of your more controllable line items as well. So let me bring over, so that's last year. We're starting with what happened last year. And now let me show you how we attempt this. And again, this is an annual total for example purposes, but we break this out month over month. Last year is looked at by month, and then we project out the next 12 months. And where can we make improvements? Now, you notice for this example, we just left revenue flat. On the food, can we drive it from 35% down to 32% and eventually have a target of 30%? So these numbers that are highlighted, those are some incremental improvements that we're shooting for over the next year. Wine cost at 30%, that's high. It should be closer to 30 to 33%. Liquor costs at 30%. That might look good, but that's actually high. You know, I have customers that are at 20% or 21%. Can we drive that down to 24% in the next 12 months? So if we did these things, minor incremental improvements in labor costs, if we did these things, minor incremental improvements in some of the direct operating expenses, how does that impact the bottom line? We're jumping from a bottom line of 2.68%, that's below 5%, barely sustainable. Your restaurant's going to have a hard time being sustainable from a cash flow standpoint at that low of a revenue percentage. We're driving that up to 10% with small incremental improvements that we can budget and schedule in and make an operational plan to hit over the next 12 months. So the budget, the operating plan not only becomes a plan, and if you decide to share this with your team, it becomes an aspirational every month goal monitoring tool. It makes your team enthusiastic to make these improvements because they can see how the bottom line is improving. And more importantly, you can see how the bottom line is improving. And maybe you're sharing those improvements with your team in a profit sharing plan. Monthly proper restaurant compensation is one of the topics that we cover in the next few weeks. So look for that as well. Okay, we've covered the sample operating plan. And then you can build that out in Excel, Google Sheets, QuickBooks Online has a budgeting tool. We use a tool called Fathom. It doesn't really matter the tool. Just make sure you've got that detailed plan month over month. And it starts with having your chart of accounts set up correctly so your financial statements, when you look back over the 12 months, are tracking the categories that you need to track as a restaurant owner. Okay, here's the part I want to emphasize. And many miss this when they minimize the importance of having a financial operating plan. And honestly, this is the most important section of today's training. The operating plan doesn't create value sitting in the drawer or in a file cabinet or on a file in your computer. It creates value when you put the plan into action and you're comparing your actual results to your plan every single month. And you take action on what you find. Most owners who build a plan, and honestly, many don't even build a plan, but many who do, they build it once at the beginning of the year and they never take it out to look at it again. That defeats the entire purpose. Your operating plan is meant to be a living document, a living operational management tool. Your restaurant business changes too fast for a static annual plan to stay relevant, and it's not relevant if you never take it out and look at it every month. So, what's the cycle? At the end of every month, you generate a report that compares your budget, your plan, whatever you want to call it, to the actual numbers. The actual revenue, actual food costs, and labor, all compared to what your plan had in store for that month, lined up side by side. And then you start to analyze the variances. Where are the gaps? Investigate. Did labor costs exceed your projections? By how much? In back of house or front of house? Did food costs spike unexpectedly? Is it a pricing issue? Is it a waste issue? Are you purchasing from the wrong vendors at too high a cost? Are sales below target because you didn't implement the marketing plan or the specials plan? So forth and so on. Not every variance is a problem. Some months you'll beat your plan in one area and miss in another. The point isn't perfection and having a perfect plan and hitting the plan perfectly. It's understanding the differences, identifying where those variances are important, the low hanging fruit that you can improve and have an impact on your bottom line. So this is the step that turns the data into intelligence. What changed? Why did it happen? Was it a one-time event like a snowstorm that killed a week's worth of business? Or a staff shortage that pushed overtime through the roof? Or is it an emerging trend that you need to address now to get things back in line and back in tune with your plan? All right. You adapt based on what you learn and you implement the changes that need to be implemented to get your business back in line with the plan. So this is the cycle. Plan, execute, compare every month to the plan. Where are the variances? Adjust and repeat every month. Every month, the plan gets more accurate, your decisions get more informed and better, and your control over your financial outcomes becomes stronger. All right, let me give you a little example of the dollar math. Let me let's put this in perspective based on dollars. If your monthly review catches a food cost variance of just 1 percentage point on $150,000 a month revenue, that's 1,500. You either save or lose depending on whether you catch it and fix it. Over the year, that 1 percentage point, that single point, is $18,000 if you never do anything about it. And that's just food costs. Add labor, add overhead creep, add revenue shortfalls you could have addressed earlier than when it becomes obviously painful. That monthly review cycle is easily worth tens of thousands of dollars a year to your restaurant and to any restaurant doing 1.5 million or above. The restaurants that treat the operating plan as a living monthly management tool consistently outperform the ones who wing it. That's a fact. There's no disputing it. Okay, let's summarize. Let's bring this all together. What are the 4 steps to financial control through your operating plan? Step 1, you define what success means to you and your restaurant. What are the success metrics? What does it look like specifically and then personally to you as well? Build your plan around that. Build a 12-month detailed operating plan is step two. Review the past 12 months of actual performance, project out the next 12, starting with revenue, then prime cost, then overhead. Be intentional, be realistic, tie your financial targets to the operational actions that will get you there, and look at each month in detail and build your plan for improvement. Track your prime costs and overhead. This is a step we didn't really get into much here, but you want to monitor the numbers that directly impact your bottom line and cash flow weekly when you can. And we address this in one of the trainings here over this 12-week series. Monthly at a minimum, weekly if you can, to track prime cost variances that need to get back in line because those are the biggest needle movers and the biggest impact on your bottom line. And then you conduct the monthly plan versus actuals review that we just beat up for about 10 minutes there. Compare, analyze, ask why, adopt, adapt. This is where the operating plan earns its keep. And it's not just a budget, it's your restaurant's GPS. It doesn't guarantee you'll arrive exactly where you want to be, but it tells you exactly where you are and where you're headed and when you get off course. And that visibility is the difference between managing your restaurant's financial future and just hoping it all works out. Okay. Now, building that operating plan requires reliable data underneath it. You need revenue broken out by category, that chart of accounts issue we talked about. You need food costs calculated with a real formula, not just purchases. You need back of house, front of house, labor separated. You need a point of sale system that's integrated with your accounting system so the data is timely and accurate. All of those things we talked about last week in the system breakdowns, and they're foundational to your operating plan as you build it out. If you're not sure whether your financial systems are ready to support that operating plan, whether the data you build is from clean, detailed, accurate information, that's exactly what the Restaurant Financial System Scorecard is designed to evaluate. It's a free assessment. It walks you through the key areas of your restaurant's financial infrastructure: the accounting setup, your prime cost visibility, your technology integration, your reporting systems. There's 22 questions and it takes about 10 minutes. And when you're done, you'll have a high level view of the foundation inside your restaurant and whether that's solid and where the gaps might be undermining everything that you're trying to build. I'll drop the link in the comments below this video. Take the scorecard and see where you stand. I also know some of you may just want to discuss how these pieces all fit together in your restaurant instead of filling out a scorecard. And that's great. I love talking to restaurateurs. So I'll also leave a link in the comments below to our request a call site. Go ahead and schedule a time to talk. I prefer a Zoom meeting. A phone call works fine too. Okay, next week, we're tackling another topic that connects directly to your operating plan, and that's cash flow. Because here's the thing, you can be profitable on paper and still run out of cash. And running out of cash isn't bad luck, it's poor planning. We take this whole budgeting concept, we apply it to the balance sheet so we can project out cash flow. And we'll dig into how that works. You won't want to miss one. If you're ever looked at your bottom line profit and thought, that's great, I don't see it in my bank account, next week's training is for you. Thanks for coming, everybody. If you take one thing away from today, let it be this: a financial plan isn't the corporate exercise. It's the most powerful management tool available to you as an independently owned restaurant operator. Build it, use it, improve with it every month. All right, have a great week, everybody. And this was valuable to you. Follow our Facebook page. We do this every week right here. Have a great week.